Yeah.
Thing of the week.
Yeah, so this is my thing of the week. I went back and watched a cult classic comedy, Clue. And for those of you who don't know, yes, it is based on the board game. And like a lot of people, I discovered this movie in the it was probably late '90s when it was on cable all the time.
Yeah, I remember catching on Comedy Central a couple of times, I think.
Yeah, it comedy. Yeah, it would be on Comedy Central at least 4 or 5 times a week. And it was also, I think they'd also have it on HBO or whatever the premium channels were, one of the premium channels. But that's where I discovered it, and it's it is one of those. I mean, it's a funny movie. If you haven't seen it, it's got a great cast. I mean, you got Tim Curry, who brings it all the time. You got Christopher Lloyd, um, Madeline Kahn, who has like one of the funniest lines in the whole movie. Yeah, flames, flames coming out of my face. um, who else? Michael McKean, who most people know him from Spinal Tap.
Oh,
Yeah, and then Martin Mull, who plays Colonel Mustard. He was in Mr. Mom, and then if you watched Arrested Development, he was Gene Parmesan.
I did not, so I'll just smile and nod.
Okay. Yes, yes. But the movie was actually, I didn't really know this until recently. It was co-written by John Landis,
Hmm.
and his comedic fingerprints are all over this movie. I mean, it's just the wackiness and of course just the the way they all play off of each other is just really hilarious. So who solved the mystery? Well, I guess it depends on the ending. um,
Yeah, this one had a unique gimmick.
yeah, it's so like I said before, I discovered this movie after it was in theaters on home video, and the home video release has all three the movie had three endings. The home video release has all three endings. But when the movie came out in the theaters, uh, it only showed one of the endings, depending on which theater you went to. And it's a interesting little marketing gimmick. It didn't help the movie though, because when it came out, it was just a total bomb. But
Oh, that's too bad.
yeah, yeah, but of course, you had people like me who, or people like us who discovered it, uh, when it, was on TV, and we're like, oh, this is a really funny movie, and then it's gotten a bit of a cult following to it.
Hmm.
If I guess I'll describe the plot a little bit. So the movie takes place in 1954, and a bunch of people have been invited to this mansion by Wadsworth. It was played by Tim Curry. He's the butler, and it's because all the people who are attending this party, of course, they're all using the pseudonyms that are from the game. Like Colonel Mustard, Professor Plum, uh, Mrs. White, Mrs. Peacock, et al. And um, they're all at this mansion because they're being blackmailed by the owner of the mansion, a guy by the name of Mr. Body. And the guy who plays Mr. Body was actually he was a lead singer in a punk band. I can't remember the name of the band, but because I'm not punk. I don't listen to punk. But so they find out that they're all being blackmailed because they all work in Washington. They either work in the government or they're
Hmm.
affiliated with the government, and they all have secrets that they want to keep. And then of course Mr. Body ends up dying, and then comedically they have to figure out who did it and why. and it's really funny watching all the interactions, with them, and the back and forths, and like Wadsworth, the one scene with Wadsworth and Colonel Mustard, where like Colonel Mustard said, "Now, you assure me there's no one else in the mansion?" "No." uh you mean there is? You don't know there's anyone in the mansion? Or yes, there, yes, yes, there's no one else in the mansion. No. It's just, they do that whole back and forth. um
And I remember like there were scenes with Moranis's character in The French Maid, or I think.
McKean.
Hmm?
Michael McKean, not Rick Moranis.
Oh,
uh, uh,
are you sure they're not the same person? Because that looks like the same person, but
it
now that you
looks
mention
like
that,
it.
he has a rounder face.
Yeah, he looks a guy. Yeah, he does look like Rick Moranis. um but
It's been a while since
yeah,
I've seen it.
yeah. There's a scene. Yeah, there's one scene where, yeah, like they're all searching the mansion, and they split off into pairs. And yeah, he's with the French maid, and there's a scene where they're both walking up the stairs side by side at the same time. Of course, the stairway is really narrow, so they're just like going through. And of course, the French maid is, very, busty, and wearing a very low cut, maid's uniform, and so there's that part of it. Um, which now that I think about it, this is probably a movie that couldn't get made today.
No, and I will just say, when you showed me this picture, I said, "Oh God, no! Don't tell me they remade it."
um, but well, speaking of remakes, I mean, we were talking before the show that Ryan Reynolds has been trying to get this movie remade, but I don't know if he will succeed or not.
I'd rather have him come out with a Deadpool 3 than a Clue remake.
Yes. Um, but yeah, this is it's a funny movie, and uh, I think it's hard for me to pick which ending I prefer. Um, so the one ending is, Miss Scarlet is the killer, and then the second ending it's Mrs. Peacock, and then the third ending I call it the Orient Express ending, where everybody did it. The only reason I don't like that ending is because Wadsworth is the bad guy.
Well, I mean, it is Tim Curry.
It's Tim Curry, yeah, I know, but he's always playing the bad guy. It's nice to see him play a good guy every now and then.
I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
But the
But
Wild
yeah, yeah.
Thornberries wasn't enough for you?
No.
Smashing. Yeah.
Yes. Uh, but yeah, I mean, the movie's on Amazon Prime. If you have an Amazon Prime account. Yeah, I mean, if you haven't watched it in a while, or if you've never seen it, I give it a recommend. It's a fun movie to watch, and it'll keep you laughing and keep you guessing.
Excellent. So my thing is Deadpool Samurai, which is a manga series produced by Shonen Jump, licensing the Marvel character.
Hmm.
They've done a few of these. They actually had the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh, rest in peace, do a Spider-Man Iron Man manga at one
Oh.
point. Um, I will say it's probably the best Deadpool comic that has been published in many years.
Mm,
It isn't quite up there with the Joe Kelly era. It's a,
yeah.
the which was which was kind of like where Deadpool got his start. It isn't quite as good as the Cable and Deadpool. It's similar to the Daniel Way era, which was basically Deadpool as a complete farce.
Ah.
So I would say that with Deadpool, he's a character who I enjoy. And this is going to sound weird. I kind of like him in as kind of a hipstery, I knew him before he was cool way. Because my local library happened to have a bunch of old issues of his '90s comic from Joe Kelly when I was a teenager.
Oh.
So I knew a lot about it, and when he became popular around the same time that Marvel Ultimate Alliance came out, because it was kind of perfect storm. You had him without his voice acting, and or he had a voice for him for the first time, really, and
Yeah.
he was a good character in the game, and he was like always making fun of the player and the other characters and things, so people appreciated that. So I think that's what really gave him his prominence.
Mm.
It was also around the time of early YouTube, so people could pull the scenes from their games and post them up online and out of context, and it was like, it's funny Spider-Man. See, proof. He knew
Mhm.
Deadpool from Ultimate Alliance. That game really gave. I don't think we would have had the Deadpool movie without that,
Yeah.
because otherwise he was that Rob Liefeld character who Joe Kelly turned into a real character. Then Fabian Nicieza teamed up with Cable
Mm.
in the 2000s. But there's like a few different strains and versions of Deadpool. Rob himself says that he likes to think of Deadpool as kind of a more serious badass who doesn't break the fourth wall.
Mm.
Then then you have like complete you can have complete Daffy Duck Deadpool who's just completely, and I'm not talking like later on snarky Daffy Duck Deadpool where he's or Daffy Duck where he's angry that Bugs Bunny is always outshining him and everything. I'm talking like early Daffy Duck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, then you've got maudlin Deadpool where it's like I just want to die but I can't. So much trouble in my past. Chimichangas. So much trouble in my past. Where like the silliness can feel tacked on. That
Yeah.
was like the Posen era, which was
Uh,
like the last one I really read back before. Deadpool was like the last Marvel comic I was reading, and they ended that particular series in a way that just pissed me off so badly that I gave up. That was where I gave up on Marvel. Really,
yeah.
didn't even wasn't even going woke. It was going bad.
Yeah.
But so this one I would say is more the Daffy Duck flavor of Deadpool.
Okay.
It's a 2-volume series, so really easy to pick up and finish up quickly. Basically, the idea is that Deadpool is in Japan on a mission from the Avengers to fight Loki, who has who's trying to get some sort of MacGuffin. It doesn't really matter what the plot actually is because it's a bunch of anticlimaxes.
Mm.
Uh, but they do things like they have references to the Wolverine Origins Deadpool. It seems like he's going to be the villain, but then he isn't. They have Thanos show up, and it seems like the Hulk is going to help him fight, and then Thanos takes him out quickly.
uh,
And
yeah, the latest Deadpool comic I read was
yeah,
the first volume of
yes,
Marvel.
that was the Posen, and I forget who the other one was. Era. I was like Posen, who's friends with who's the guy who played Remy in Ratatouille?
Patton Oswald.
Yeah, he's Patton Oswalt's friend.
Mm.
So like, I think the way it had it was like he was providing the comedy side of it, and then um, and then they had another writer providing the dramatic side of it. And before I get into this, Ugly Media, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, same
How
here.
did the Deadpool run end? So the way that particular Deadpool run ended was you had Deadpool with all the friends he had made over that arc, like his daughter he didn't know he had, his hot vampire girlfriend, the ghost of Benjamin Franklin, and a few other supporting characters he'd met up with, um, are standing around, and suddenly it was in the context of some big crossover event. I think it was the Secret War they did, or it was Secret War, and suddenly you had Earth slam into another planet, and they were at like the epicenter where they met, so it looked like they all died.
Oh.
Now, this irritated me so much because this was again, I wasn't reading the series week by or month by month. I was, I wasn't reading the other comics, so I had no idea what this was. I was grabbing the occasional volume off of Barnes and Noble Nook, so
Yeah.
I was completely divorced. So I didn't know that this was a big crossover event. Or I think I did actually no. I think I had an inkling that it was a big crossover event, and I was like, "Screw you, comic! Give me an ending that has the context of the comic itself. Don't. Oh, I see what you're doing. It's just like the Daniel Way run ended with him shooting himself in the brain so that he would be different when he came back.
Okay.
And it just like that whole run was about him wanting to die, but this run actually had like a plot and character growth and things. So let's have him improve and grow. But no, we're gonna it's like the biggest rocks fall, everybody dies ever.
Oh, jeez.
Now,
Uh,
it is possible that I overreacted, but at the same time, I don't know. I have to, from everything I've heard about the Deadpool runs since then, I don't think I missed much.
uh, he said, Ninja Toe says he married the vampire and then divorced later.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It was. Did they get divorced? I guess it was inevitable.
Yeah.
Deadpool
Marvel,
can't have anything nice in his life.
yeah. Marvel now was the last time Marvel was decent.
But yeah. So back to this manga.
Yes.
so, so the manga is the Deadpool run that this most resembles is the Daniel Way run.
Mhm.
And they have some spin-off characters. Specifically, they have Spider Sakura here, who you'll notice is a teenage girl with Spider-Man powers in a pink costume,
Mhm.
because Sakura petals.
Yes.
And and basically, it's a bunch of, how to put it. If it was any character but Deadpool, I would probably call this a bad manga because technically nothing matters or pays off.
Mm.
It's basically him recruiting a team of local Avengers only to abandon them when it actually goes to fight. So you have like Spider Sakura over here, who is anticlimactically taken out right before the fight,
Oh,
doesn't even
jeez.
get to Loki. And you have
Uh,
this idol girl version of Venom who runs off because she realizes she has a concert scheduled, so she can't help even though she was going to, if I'm recalling right.
uh,
Um, and it's like it's just a whole bunch of anticlimaxes. But
yeah.
because it's Deadpool, it kind of fits.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of like what happens in Deadpool 2 when he recruits a team and then like they all die
Yes,
except for
exactly,
what's her name. Yeah.
exactly. And like the last couple of pages, he he goes to the Shonen Jump offices to try to get his manga published, and uh, yeah, there he is, like photos of him meeting with one of the publishers, and then you have him meeting up with CB Cebulski of Marvel.
Person had to be the people's.
And then they end the volume with this reference to the last volume cover of Dragon Ball.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I would say like the humor is pretty broad and good. There
Mhm.
are a lot of deep cut references to manga creators that I don't understand, so I just tended to just go, okay, moving on.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, boy, this is a such and such manga, isn't it? Or it's like, what is? Oh, and also All Might makes an appearance
Oh.
because he accidentally calls the wrong number for reinforcements when he meant to call the Avengers.
Okay.
So it's just a good silly time. You're not
Yeah.
gonna again. It's probably the best Deadpool comic done since the Marvel Now era.
Okay. Cool.
So that, which isn't saying a whole lot, but it's at least like it isn't how to it, it isn't Twitter writers
Right. Yeah.
and what they think is funny.
Oh, Domino. That's who it was. Okay. Domino.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so let's take a look see at some of the our usual quick dive into the box office.